I heard his boots on the porch steps before I saw him. That heavy, certain sound I had memorized in 3 years of marriage. Normally, I would have already been at the stove, already have had the table set, already have been exactly where I was supposed to be. But that afternoon, I was not where I was supposed to be. I was sitting at the edge of our bed with my diary open in my lap. And when I heard those boots, my whole body went cold. I had exactly 4 seconds to decide what to do. My name is Sarah. I was 24 years old. And that afternoon, those 4 seconds changed the rest of my life. I need to take you back to where the diary began. Not to that afternoon, but to the girl who started writing in it, because she is the reason any of this happened at all. I had kept a diary since I was 15, not because anyone taught me to, not because it was encouraged. In our community in Pennsylvania, private journals were not exactly forbidden, but they were viewed with quiet suspicion. Writing down your inner thoughts was considered a form of dwelling on the self, and dwelling on the self was the opposite of the Galassan spirit, the yielded, humble, community-minded spirit that every good Amish woman was supposed to carry. But I could not stop writing. It was the one place where I was completely honest. The one place where my thoughts belonged entirely to me. When I married Jonas at 21, I hid the diary in the bottom of my cedar chest beneath 2 quilts and my mother's old prayer covering. Jonas was not a cruel man. He was a certain man, certain about Scripture, certain about his role as the head of our household, certain about what a wife's life should look like from the inside. He did not ask many questions about my inner world. I think he assumed it looked the same as the outer one. Quiet, ordered. Content. It did not look the same. In the pages of that diary, I wrote things I could never have spoken out loud. I wrote about the loneliness I felt some mornings that I could not explain and could not justify. I wrote about the questions that surfaced during the long, silent stretches of the day. Questions about faith, about purpose, about whether the life I was living was one I had truly chosen, or one I had simply been shaped into without knowing it was happening. I wrote about the outside world sometimes, things I had glimpsed during trips to town, conversations I had overheard, a newspaper left on a bench outside the feed store that I had read 3 paragraphs of before putting back down and walking away quickly, my heart beating faster than it should have been over 3 paragraphs of ordinary news. I wrote about wanting more. I wrote it carefully and quietly, and in a handwriting so small that the words barely seemed to exist on the page. But they existed, and so did I. The real me. The one that lived between the lines of the life everyone else could see. Jonas found the diary on a Thursday in October. He had come home early from the fields because of weather moving in. I had not heard the early warning, the change in the wind, the way the horses moved in the paddock. I was sitting on the bed writing, the cedar chest open beside me where I had taken the diary out to add a few lines before supper. I had been careless. That was the truth of it. 3 years of hiding something perfectly, and then one ordinary Thursday afternoon I had been careless. I had 4 seconds. I closed the diary. I stood up. But he was already in the doorway. He did not say anything at first. He looked at the diary in my hands. He looked at the open cedar chest. He looked at my face, and then he held out his hand. I cannot fully describe what happened inside me in that moment. It was not simple fear, though fear was part of it. It was something closer to the feeling of watching something you have built carefully over a long time begin to come apart. Not all at once, but in the slow, unstoppable way of things that have already been set in motion. I held the diary for 1 more second. Then I placed it in his hand. He read for a long time. I stood by the window and watched the clouds moving in from the west, and I did not speak. He did not speak. The only sound was the wind picking up outside and the occasional soft turn of a page. When he finally looked up, his face was not what I expected. I had prepared myself for anger. What I saw instead was something quieter and in some ways harder to face. It was a look of genuine confusion, as though he had picked up a book he thought he knew and found completely different words inside it. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Like the woman standing by the window was not the woman he had married. And maybe he was right. Maybe the woman in those pages had always been a stranger to the woman he thought he knew. He asked me one question. He said, "Is this who you really are?" I stood at that window for a long time before I answered him. The clouds were almost overhead now. The light had gone gray and flat. And I thought about all the careful years of being exactly what was expected. All the mornings of dressing in the dark and going downstairs and being present in every way that could be seen, while somewhere inside me, a different woman was writing in very small handwriting about wanting more. I thought about Galassan, about what it had cost me to practice it, about whether I had ever truly felt it or only ever performed it. And then I said yes. I said, yes, this is who I really am. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my marriage. Jonas did not shout. He was not that kind of man. What he did was withdraw into a silence so complete and so cold that it filled every room of our house the way winter fills a barn. Not violent, just total. He spoke to me about necessary things. He fulfilled his duties. But the warmth was gone, replaced by a careful distance that said more than any argument could have. The deacon came to visit, then the bishop. I sat in our front room and listened while they explained, gently and firmly, that a wife's inner world should be an open one. Open to her husband, to God, to the community's guidance. That private thoughts kept in secret were a form of separation that worked against the unity a marriage required. That what I had been writing was a sign of a heart that had not fully surrendered to its proper place. I listened to every word, and I thought about the diary, about the girl who had started writing in it at 15 because she needed one place where she was completely honest, about everything those pages contained that was real and true and mine. And I understood something I had not understood before. The diary was not the problem. The diary was the only place I had ever told the truth. The problem, if there was one, was that the truth needed more room than the pages of a hidden book, that it needed to exist somewhere outside of very small handwriting at the bottom of a cedar chest. I am not going to tell you how the story ends tonight. Some endings take longer than one telling. What I will tell you is this. That afternoon by the window, when Jonas asked me if that was who I really was, and I said yes. That was the first completely honest thing I had said out loud in 3 years of marriage. Maybe longer. And whatever it cost me, whatever came after, I have never once wished I had said something different. There is something about being truly seen. Even when the seeing is frightening, even when what is seen creates consequences you are not ready for, that you cannot unfeel once it has happened. I had spent 3 years being invisible inside my own life. And then, for one gray October afternoon, I was visible. Completely, terribly, honestly visible. I want to ask you something. Not about Amish life or marriage or diaries, about you. Is there a version of yourself that only exists in secret? A self that you have kept carefully hidden because you were not sure what it would cost you to let it be seen? And if there is, how long have you been carrying it alone? Because I believe that version of you deserves more than a hidden page. I believe it deserves to exist somewhere real. In your own time, in your own way, on your own terms, but somewhere real. You are more than what people can see of you. I know that now. I knew it at 15 when I first picked up a pen. And no matter what anyone tells you, that knowing is not a sin. It is the truest thing about you.